I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Well, the St. Louis County Board votes next week on the 2016 county budget, which features some good news for property owners.
A major grant was announced this week to help bridge the opportunity gap in the Twin Ports. The ultimate goal is to improve the lives of local families.
And we will have the business headlines and look back at a story in the news 25 years ago.
You've come to the right place. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, it feels like we've been away a long time with Thanksgiving and the WDSE membership drive the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. We certainly hope that people donated when they were asked to over the last, had great programming over those last 2 weeks.
Great programming, and word has it, it was a very successful membership drive.
Wonderful.
So thank you to everybody who called in.
All right, that's for sure.
All right, we've got some great topics tonight, so let's get started.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. Welcome, everyone. St. Louis County Commissioners will vote next week on the 2016 county budget. Now, the board set the maximum levy at a little over $116 million back in September, the same level as 2015. If the budget passes as expected, county property owners will actually see a decrease in the county share of property taxes. And here to tell us more is Pete Stauber. Pete is chair of the St. Louis County Board, and Commissioner Keith Nelson is chair of the board's Finance Committee. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Commissioner Stauber, public meetings were held this past week. What did you hear from county residents regarding this upcoming levy?
Well, in fact, Danny, many of the county residents were very happy with the 0% levy increase for 2016. We had worked very hard at that. That was a goal from really starting last January. And the 0% levy increase is well taken by the residents. And we understand that with that 0% levy increase, the services won't decline. In fact, we know that there are people out there expecting the services and expecting great service from St. Louis County, and we're going to deliver again in 2016.
Commissioner Nelson, it's almost unheard of for property taxes to be flat or go down. How did the county manage it?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that the investment that people are making is serving our community, as Chair Stauber indicated, but getting to the 0%, it's a tremendous effort. Our board, our staff has worked exceptionally hard to try and maximize the dollars coming into St. Louis County from other sources, and just holding the line wherever we possibly could.
Keith, you're a St. Louis County Commissioner living in the Virginia area, serving that part of the Iron Range. Did the uncertainty in the mining industry have anything to do with that decision to hold taxes, hold the levy?
I certainly think that our board recognizes that there are some difficulties out there economically, with the Iron Range, and we're trying to make certain that we don't adversely affect those small businesses and those individuals who are being temporarily laid off from the mining industry. So yes, it did play a part in our decision-making process.
The other side of the coin, of course, with that is that there could be more people turning to the county in need of county services with the struggles that are happening up on the range. Has the county made some accommodations for that?
We have. We put into place each year provisions for the unexpected, and we have our Public Health and Human Services Director, who you'll be meeting shortly, has done a really good job in that part. The county services are a critical component, a critical core component that we deliver to the folks, and we understand, especially in the economic times, if there's a downturn, that we're prepared and ready to serve those folks in any way that we can as a county.
Yeah. And we do have a graphic that kind of shows the big pie and how you split it up. If we could get that up, maybe you could explain, one of you, how the money is spent in the county.
Sure. You'll see that the graphic on the screen, the biggest budget item we have is public safety. And public safety, that you're talking from our sheriffs, our corrections, our attorneys. That's an incredible amount of money spent. However, it's needed. We want to make sure that justice is served across the county in equally and proportionate ways. And our county, led by our county attorney, our Sheriff Ross Littman, they understand the magnitude that law enforcement needs to have in St. Louis County. And Commissioner Nelson will be talking about the other three items.
We have, when you really break down our budget, we have the big three. Okay, public safety, as our chair, Commissioner Stauber, addressed. The second is, of course, public health and human services, which is the component that you talked about potentially seeing a greater need in 2016 and beyond. I want to reassure all of your listeners that St. Louis County financially is in tremendous shape. We have reserves to cover any issues that could come forward. And we have a great deal of flexibility or fungibility within our budget to be able to accommodate that. The third is the public, our road structure, roads and bridges, public works. And we're prepared there as well, investing 19% plus of our budget in roads, road projects, bridges. But we're also investing outside of this budget completely the proceeds from our sales tax that was implemented early this year.
How did that do?
It is doing absolutely tremendous, Dennis. We think that next year we're going to be delivering in the neighborhood of $80 million worth of road and bridge projects throughout St. Louis County. I drove on a couple of those road projects as I was coming here this evening. It's exciting.
So, Commissioner, other than the levy, what else determines property taxes in St. Louis County?
Well, the levy is what sets that level and that level of investment for property tax
Does new growth help?
Well, the new growth that we experienced is going to be the component of our budget that actually drops people's taxes, because we've seen about a 5% real growth in property in St. Louis County over the past year.
What kind
year
of
and a half.
projects?
And well, a lot of those projects, a lot of that growth occurred within the city of Duluth, a lot of business growth that occurred, which is exciting. And that 5% growth, the bigger the pie, the smaller the pieces. So,
Commissioner?
And Dennis, you talk about the growth. You just look in the city of Hermantown, my hometown, with the growth in commercial businesses, with the mills and the Holiday Inn Express, the new St. Luke's Clinic, and the building the private homes in Hermantown. And that helps reduce the levy, the cost for everyone when there's expansion like that. And as Commissioner Nelson said, you look down in the city of Duluth and you see cranes and businesses and workers working. That's a good good sign for the city of Duluth.
So will all taxpayers then, property owners, see a decrease in their county portion of the taxes?
proportionally, all property taxpayers are going to see a decrease over what their property taxes could or would have been. People do need to remember that when, if they had home improvements or if their assessment has gone up, that would also affect their property tax statement. But throughout St. Louis County, for the county portion is going to be going down.
People need to remember cities, schools, townships, they all have
Special levies, correct.
Absolutely, special levies which affect your property taxes.
Yes.
And property values, did they fluctuate much in the last year?
No, the property values, they didn't fluctuate as much as we expected, but when our assessors go out there every 3 or 5 years, what they try to do is have a consistent assessing value throughout the county. And you'll notice that there are times where the assessed value kind of increases a little bit higher than the individual homeowner wants. And that's because if you look back at the blue ribbon panel that we had, some people's homes, particularly in the city of Duluth, weren't being assessed at the average or yearly rate that it should have been. And so throughout the county, it's catching up, and that's what that blue ribbon panel was. And people have to understand that the assessment has to be equal and fair for everybody, north and south.
The county board gave unanimous approval to supporting the PolyMet copper nickel project. Was that a no-brainer?
I think that the county board really set a course that they are supporting the process, the scientific process that's going on, and I think all commissioners agree that that process is worthy and is something that needs to occur, and that's why I think you saw the vote from each and every commissioner, putting that confidence in the DNR and the MPCA, and in our governor that the process is going forward. And they're being all inclusive. So I think commissioners indicated that they had that belief in the process.
Any lingering concerns about the environmental implications?
We're letting the science base do the talking in this EIS, and I, for one, along with the board, feel that when you add the science and the factual data, it's driven to a point where we believe that we can mine safely and not harm the environment, and that's our goal.
All right, Commissioners Stauber and Nelson, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much
for having us.
Yes.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Is it possible that the beer-drinking state of Wisconsin could actually run out of its favorite beverage? Well, probably not, but just in case, liquor store owners like Tom Unterberger are stocking up. Tom says on January 1st, a new federal excise tax on alcohol, especially beer, is going to kick in, and that has him a little nervous.
Everybody's guessing. The wholesalers are guessing, the retailers are guessing. The manufacturers are also guessing, but when they run out, they will run out. So it's a possibility that we could run out by the end of December and not be able to get product.
The new sin tax, as it is called, will double the tax on a case of beer from 64 cents to $1.28. And by the time inflationary costs are added on the wholesale and retail levels, a case could cost up to $2 more in 1991. It's for that reason Tom's distributor says his customers as well as consumers are smart to stock up now.
People are going to be able to save themselves at least anywhere from $1 to $1.50 on a bottle of liquor, $1 to $1.50 on a bottle of wine, or $2 on a case of beer.
Tom says there still is a bright spot in the gloom and doom of the impending tax hike, especially if you live in the Twin Ports.
Our taxes are still lower in Wisconsin than in Minnesota, our state taxes. So the beer will still be cheaper in Wisconsin than in Minnesota.
For Evening Edition, Stacy Scheibel, KDLH News.
Americans pride themselves in the idea of equal opportunity for all, yet in recent years, the prospects for children growing up in poor families seems to be dwindling. This opportunity gap between the rich and the poor is the focus of an initiative announced this week by the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation. The $1.5 million grant will help pinpoint how the gap plays out in our area and then fund programs to narrow the gap. And joining us now is Holly Sampson, president of the Community Foundation. Ann Busche is director of St. Louis County's Health and Human Services Department. And Kevin Breen is head of school at Duluth's Marshall School. And both Ann and Kevin will serve on the Opportunity Gap Convening Committee. And thanks to all of you for coming in. Exciting news for you, Holly.
Absolutely, Julie. We're so excited about this opportunity with the funding from the Margaret A. Cargill Foundation.
When you talk about an opportunity gap, what do you mean?
So we were so fortunate to have Dr. Robert Putnam with us at our annual meeting in May, and he really talked about his book, Our Kids, the American Dream in Crisis. And what Dr. Putnam talks about is really what he describes as a scissors graph. So from the 1970s to the current, what we're seeing is a real change in how children in low-income families, what the outcomes for them have been. So for example, in parenting, if you look at the 1970s, children in low-income families were receiving about the same number of hours of attention from their parents as children in high-income families. If you look at those numbers today, it's very different. So parenting hours have increased in high-income families, and they've decreased in low-income families. So that's one example of the opportunity
So
gap.
Holly, it kind of begs the question, what is the Community Foundation? What do you do?
Well, the Community Foundation funds all sorts of different organizations, nonprofit organizations in the arts, human services, education, and of course we also provide scholarships across the region. So what we've been learning, Dennis, is that especially from educational institutions and nonprofit organizations, the demand for their services has really increased, and the intensity of the problems that low-income families are facing has really
And how will
increased.
this $1.5 million grant help?
Well, I think it will really help as a community. In public health and human services, these are the kids that we see every single day. And I'm thrilled to be on the convening committee. About a year ago, we really started to see an impact in our child maltreatment reports, and they have actually increased about 36% over last year. And I started to think, you know, what's happening?
Yeah.
Is there something unique about St. Louis County or the Duluth area? And I started to do a little data analysis and some data work, and then, you know, Holly called me and asked me to be on this group, and I started to read Dr. Putnam's book, and it was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to understand a little bit of what is kind of happening. It's not just the Duluth community, but I really think it's nationwide. And so this is just such a great opportunity for the community to come together, because these really are our kids, and no single agency can address the issues. I think we really have to come together, and this is just a great opportunity to bring the community together.
Kevin, you work in education, and education is one of those areas where there seems to be a gap between different segments of society. How do you see this funding as an opportunity to maybe even the playing field a little bit more in our community?
Right. Well, I've had the good fortune of taking place in other projects like this, and I like to think that there's three things that students need. They need hope, they need curiosity, and they need drive. So at this committee, we've had some really inspiring conversation about mentoring and about early intervention, things that can keep the hope and the drive alive in students. Because education can be a great equalizer as long as children can see a path to success.
Most of us have had many dreams about our futures, about our lives when we were a lot younger. Is the American dream in crisis? Anybody can answer that?
You know, I don't think so. When I found this book, Our Kids, I was reading another book, The Road to Character by David Brooks, and he said we happen to be in consecutive generations of meism, and there'll be a correction. In generations of meism, he makes the case that you find yourself in you lack a moral compass. Our Kids is such a simple idea to bring us back to some moral exactitude. It brings us all together through various types of work, and I think it's really going to be a spark for our community.
Holly, it's very easy to identify and even quantify things like an income gap or an academic achievement gap. But how do you really put your finger on what those opportunity gaps are in the community?
You know, we have started a really interesting process, I think, for us to understand as a committee and also as a community what's really driving the opportunity gap in Duluth and in Superior. So with the committee, we'll be convening some listening sessions. We'll be having meetings during the month of January where we're bringing together nonprofit organizations who really work with people who are in the gap today to really help us understand what they're facing. We'll also have an opportunity to be in the community and talk with people themselves to really get a firsthand knowledge about really what our focus should be and how we should intervene.
And about 20% of children across the Northland live in poverty. As a result, are they less healthy today than maybe a generation ago?
They are definitely less healthy. We have done some studies on what's called the social determinants of health, and what that says is that, you know, your health is way more than just the health care that you receive. And we know that individuals in poverty who live in lower income neighborhoods, who don't have safe places to play, who maybe don't have walkable places
Sure.
to go. We know that they can live 11 years less than people who have a higher income and different conditions. And it's just the chronic stress of being in poverty. And in fact, we know that in certain areas of Duluth, you can expect to live 11 years longer than people who are living in other areas of Duluth.
As a committee member, Kevin, what aspect of this whole prospect makes you most excited?
Well, personally, I've learned so much from the other committee members. They all bring such expertise. I feel I'm a bit of a newcomer, but I also see, after 2 hours of really riveting conversation, I see a way forward. We're not there yet, but I know I have confidence that we'll get there in a way that'll help our kids and also help us make this really feel cooperative.
$1.5 million is a lot of money. How do you go about spending it to actually make a difference? Does a good portion of it go right to the community foundation? Is a good portion of it go out into grants? How do you see that breakdown?
Yeah, that's a great question, Julie. So once our convening committee really establishes what the focus will be, we will establish a re-granting program. So the vast majority of this money will go back out to the community depending on the focus that we determine. So perhaps it's parenting for the 0 to 3 population, or perhaps it's focused on teens and their parents. We just don't quite know what the focus will be, but these dollars will go out to the community.
And will those grants be going out to individuals with great ideas, or to nonprofits, or how will that vetting process go for you?
Yeah, they will go to either existing nonprofits, or perhaps if we as a committee define a gap in the service delivery system today, perhaps we need to create something new to fill that gap. But the dollars will go to nonprofit organizations.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the correlation between low income and poverty. How long are people usually in a poverty cycle, and does it change from generation to generation, or does it continue in generation to generation? Maybe you can address that. I guess I'm talking locally here.
Well, I'll maybe take a start and others can join in, but I think that it can happen in a variety of ways. I think we definitely do have some generational cycles of poverty. I think that there are other folks that maybe start in poverty and through education or other advancement can work their way out of poverty. But I think what Dr. Putnam is saying is that used to be easier to do. You know, individuals, back in the 70s who may have started out in poverty had the ability through education and advancement, and today's children are lacking that same ability for advancement. And so how do we really try to address that and give them the skills and services they need to move out of poverty and towards self-sufficiency?
Money is coming from so many directions and being thrown at the issue of poverty and getting at those root causes. How will you measure success in a program that this was a solid investment of $1.5 million?
One of the pieces of that $1.5 million will be used to bring in an evaluation consultant. We don't know who that will be at this point because we don't know what our focus is yet. But once we determine our focus, we will find someone who will establish an evaluation methodology for us. So there will be reporting back to us. And in fact, we've already talked at the committee about perhaps we should be doing some longitudinal work and follow individuals who are in this program for a number of years. So all that is yet to be determined, but clearly there will be an
With that size grant, you must be looking for some wonderful things.
We are. We're really looking for some great programs, but I think the other piece of the puzzle is really to carry forward Dr. Putnam's challenge, and that is for us as community members to embrace all kids in the community. It's not just about our sons and daughters. It's about all the children in our community.
All right. Well, good luck going forward, and again, congratulations on the grant. And
Thank
you
you.
for coming
Thank
in
you
and
so
sharing
much.
information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, time now for a look at the week's business news from Business North. Looking for an economic development tool, Superior business owners are asking Wisconsin legislators for permission to use a financing instrument typically reserved for larger cities. Better City Superior, a private economic development group, is organizing the effort to create an exposition district downtown. The legislation would allow bonds to be sold to private investors, then be repaid by new taxes generated through economic growth. The group has identified a hotel, convention center, water park, a sports field house, a movie theater, and a corporate campus as developments that would most benefit the city.
Paul Bunyan Communications has been awarded a $2 million broadband grant from the state of Minnesota to expand fiber optic services to portions of central Itasca County. The total expansion cost is expected to be $5.5 million, with the balance of funds to be provided by Paul Bunyan, the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Board, and Itasca County. Construction will begin next spring and extend service to more than 1,000 locations in the central part of the county.
The Catholic Diocese of Duluth has filed for bankruptcy protection in the wake of a court ruling in a sexual abuse case. The court ruled the diocese must pay $4.8 million in damages, which exceeds its $3.3 million annual operating budget. The process allows the insolvent diocese to remain in operation while it reorganizes. Parishes, Catholic schools, and other local Catholic entities, such as endowments, are incorporated separately from the diocese and are unlikely to be affected. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment about our show, now is the time to call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. You can also go to the WDSE website for updates on your favorite programs, news about the station, events, or to become a supporting member online. And Denny, some of our viewers are hoping for a white Christmas, while others are quite happy, I think, with our El Nino winter so far.
If you're really hoping for snow, we're still fairly, we're only in the midway point of the month of December. We could see snow.
Yeah, and I'm thankful we don't have our outdoor Christmas lights up yet.
Oh, we don't? Oh, we do.
We need a little more time. For Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.